What a day, ladies and gentlemen. What a day. Be Philanthropy. We started off this morning with Her Majesty the Queen and with Pierre Wunsch, who set the tone. Then we had 12 inspiring sessions. This morning we heard Pierre Wunsch say philanthropy is a state of mind. It's not about pity. It is about empathy. It's about giving. And it's about trust. And I would like to add something to that. It is also about love. You know, the ancient Greeks, they defined actually 6 types of love. We all know the most famous one, the one Eros, the one that we're all looking for, that gives us goosebumps, but also knocks us off our feet, and then we have to get back up again. You know, we've all been through that. We know that one. It can be a kind of destroying one. But then there's the 4th one, which is agape. And agape is actually the most selfless, type of love. Agape. It was translated later by the Latins into caritas, which became, of course, the charity. Now, agape is not only for family members, the old Greeks said, but it's also extended to strangers. And I would like to thank you, because I really enjoyed being here. I think there was an unbelievable energy all day long. And I'm very happy to give the floor for the last few words to the CEO, since exactly 1 year, of the King Boudewijn Foundation, Brieuc Van Damme.
Thank you, Marleen. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you to Her Majesty. I hope she can hear me. Thank you to Deputy Prime Minister Vincent van Petegem for delivering a speech. Thank you to our chair, Pierre Wunsch, and to Forrest Whitaker, of course, for setting the tone and laying down the challenges for the day. And thank you, Marleen, for brilliantly hosting this day, for your very inspiring quotes and your elegance as always. And thank you. Yes, you can applaud her. Thank you. And thank you, of course, dear friends, moderators, speakers, and public, for coming here, for bringing your ideas in a generous spirit, for listening with open minds, and for playing your part in this exploration of what it is to be philanthropy. This is my first opportunity to speak to you as a CEO of the King Boudewijn Foundation, and to speak to you in one place, and to so many of you. There was more than 1,000 people attending today, and a lot of people frustrated maybe of not being able to attend. And you definitely honored your presence today. And it's happened to fall almost exactly 1 year ago, as Marleen said, that I took on the role, arriving from academia and public service to discover what for me is a whole new world, the world of philanthropy. And that set me thinking about these moments in our lives when new prospects open up and new challenges arise. And looking back, I see how, like many children, my awareness of the wider world and society really began on the day I walked into elementary school. 2 months later, in November 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. And so began a dozen of formative years of schooling that were infused with that sense that in the wider world, at least my world, a privileged world, everything seemed to be getting for everyone, that things could only get better for everyone. Just as my youthful imagination was being fired up by the intergalactic encounters of and alliances of the Star Trek universe, so in the real world, borders were dissolving. Bridges were being built from the rubble of walls. I remember those images very clearly on the news. Countries were working together. Societies seemed to be becoming more tolerant. And poverty was gradually decreasing. Some even dared speak of the end of history. It was into that world that I graduated high school in July 2001, confident of being able to make a positive contribution in a world in progress. 2 months later, the Twin Towers fell in New York. So the first 2 decades of my adult life then were to be marked by a sense of swimming upstream, to be honest. First came the wars, of course, then the financial crisis, the rise of extremes and violent radicalism, also in Belgium, a growing awareness of the challenges of our aging society and warming planet, and most recently, a pandemic, natural disasters, new walls and frontiers going up, and war again, this time in Europe. Like many of my generation, it made me somewhat wistful of that senior time of our childhood. Nostalgic, I guess, but also resigned to perhaps not ever knowing such optimism again. And then a year ago, this coming Monday, I walked into the King Bowden Foundation as chief executive. 2 months later, no. Some patterns are meant to be broken. 2 months later, no great triumph nor calamity shook the planet. The only thing to fall was perhaps my own sense of the limitations of what we are capable of as communities, of what we are capable of by working together and by talking with each other like we've done today. I found myself beamed up like a somewhat dazed Captain Kirk into this world of philanthropy, a world that brought back to me in so many ways those heady childhood days of the 90s, rich with opportunity, progress, and optimism, and also boys' bands. I've discovered this world where people derive more satisfaction from giving than from getting. I've discovered a world where people who can take responsibility and try to help and empower others. I've discovered a world where innovation, impact, and engagement are central. It's hard to become a pessimist, as my predecessor would say, when you get to work with so many creative, engaged, and optimistic people, day in and day out. But these aren't the 90s, of course. Today, we've spoken of many of the new challenges our society faces at the local, national, European, and global level, of criticisms that philanthropy and philanthropists are confronted with. And we've talked about the new opportunities at our disposal as technological, regulatory, and other innovations reshape the world of giving. And a lot has happened since, we did this conference, I think 6 years ago. A lot of good things are happening and are about to happen. Those who know me well are never surprised to hear me name-check the Starship Enterprise and Captain Kirk, as I have done several times today already. I have a big geeky side. When I came on board at the King Bowden Foundation, I couldn't help but feel the echoes of my childhood hero's mission: to seek out new worlds and unknown peoples, to extend a hand in peace and friendship, and to dare to try new ways as they boldly go where no one has gone before. And that, I think, is the mission of a foundation like ours. At KBF, we too aim to draw on the best ideas and practices we find around the world and bring those to bear for those in need, for those who find themselves beyond the reach of other safety nets. So, as we chart the next stage in our voyage, as an institution and as part of a wider philanthropy community, it's been good to reflect with all of you today on just what it is, this world of philanthropy we talk about. To wind back my cultural references, from the future to the past, and to recall Lampedusa's novel The Leopard, for those who have read it, we are at a moment where much is changing. And so it must, if we are to preserve something unchanging about the essence of philanthropy, that we all want to do well by others and for others. Allow me to reflect a little bit back on some of the things that have been said during the day. Her Majesty has spoken of a counterparty to the national and international crises of the past 3 years. A detectable upsurge across populations of a need to channel feelings of empathy into action. Of a new awareness, and this is important, of our collective fragility. It's becoming okay to say, I'm not okay, and that's good. Of a new awareness that we rely on others for our well-being, and that others rely on us for their well-being. And the greater desire to put resources, not just of money, but of our time and talent, at the service of others, so that no one should be forgotten, so that no one should be left behind. We see here in Belgium how our index of philanthropy continues to advance, standing now nearly 75% higher than 15 years ago. Not only is there hope, dear friends, there is progress too. Her Majesty also posed the question of how we can nurture philanthropy that is practiced, not just by the fortunate few, but by the many. The film conversations we've watched on the streets of Brussels show terribly well, I think, just how diverse and widespread the roots of philanthropy are today. We heard from the Deputy Prime Minister how philanthropy can and should complement public action, not replace it, and that the regulatory and fiscal framework, both at national and European level, should help in doing so. I've been inspired by the range and depth of reflection, especially in many of our parallel sessions, as you have explored such issues of responsibility, of how private initiative can complement rather than supplant or counter public action, as I've said, of how we can innovate and enable new groups, networks, and types of donors. And we've heard from Forrest Whitaker. I remember him from Ghost Dogs, if some of you have seen that movie, one of my favorite movies of the 90s. And we've heard about his extraordinary journey, very personal journey in philanthropy, but also his understanding of the universality of that human urge to give, to share, and to help. I'm so struck by his work, not just in helping young people whom we see as victims, but in helping those youngsters to give up, to give of themselves in turn, to help them to help others. And by doing so, giving themselves a sense of self. It's been said before, philanthropy isn't about pity. It's about empowerment. It's about trust. Philanthropy is for everyone. Philanthropy is a state of mind. That's what my chair said. I think most of you will agree. Today's diversity of interventions and opinions have beautifully illustrated his point. We can disagree, but in the end, we all work towards the same goal. For myself, I take away from today's discussions a conviction that is even firmer than before, that philanthropy has a vital role to play. That without philanthropy, progress will be harder. We should, however, remain true to our role as explorer, not empire builders. We should remain true to our values as allies, not rivals. We must embrace a variety of our fellow citizens' ideas of giving. And we have to accept doubt. We have to accept some degree of failure that comes with operating on ground that is constantly shifting in unpredictable ways, along a complex array, especially now, of interlinked dimensions that would leave even the superlative Vulcan reasoning skills of Mr. Spock groping in the dark. We do have a compass, though. A compass through space and through time. It's constructed in exchanges such as those that we have enjoyed today. It's dialogue. It's empathy. Small when compared with the resources of the state, our resources may best be used for experimental engineering, showing the way for others, and indeed, through our failures, showing where not to tread, and can also step in quickly in places where public bodies can be held back. As pathfinders, and sometimes trailblazers, we must gather sparse information as widely as possible, building networks. Networks that must be as diverse as possible, as diverse as the society we serve. in order to deliver on our promise. Bolstering the democratic underpinnings of European society is among our concerns at KBF today. Strengthening the democratic legitimacy of our work means ensuring that we align it with the varied needs and wants of our stakeholders. And this is important. I feel like more and more in our polarized societies, we've lost the ability to talk, to try to understand somebody else's position, even when we disagree. There was a study published of the World Economic Forum that said that, according to their poll, more than 70% of people would not help somebody in need if they knew they disagreed politically with that person. That is the end of society. We are seeing a growth in new forms of local philanthropy, also within the kinds of virtual communities, often youthful, that have been enabled by online technologies, where giving can often be more spontaneous. Impact and its evaluation are gaining momentum, which is a good thing because we are accountable. And we need to reassess what we do in order to have more impact with the limited resources at our disposal. And we're also working hard to facilitate cross-border giving. At the KBF, we do this through the Myriad Partnership. Building bridges to serve solidarity regardless of frontiers. We, of course, honor our donors' legitimate freedom to give where they choose. By doing so, they nourish private passions and interests that may be overlooked, even disparaged by the crowd, but are a tremendous source of innovation. That too is part of our role in fostering an inclusive society. Today we are relishing putting our expertise at the service of a growing range of corporations and institutions looking to invest for social impact or to align charitable donations with the interests of their staff. We are working to help young people not only benefit from the generosity of others, but to reach out and help each other. We see it as a positive to juxtapose the local and the increasingly global. And that is what I discovered a year ago, which I think is absolutely fantastic. You know, at the foundation, I think in the 80s, we were given 3 islands in a river in the south of Belgium by a farmer. And the farmer didn't want the very local, natural character of those islands to be spoiled once he passed away. So he gave it to us. And what we do is, once a year during summer, we put some sheep on those islands. And we use that moment, that beautiful moment, to gather the whole village, to grill some sausages, to have the schools connect with other people from the village, to drink a beer, to teach about the fragility of nature. And at the same time, and I think my chair discussed it this morning, we're working on very strategically important topics such as a fair energy transition. Presenting our conclusions at Sharm el-Sheikh, working together with 2 Director Generals of the European Commission. I've seen Ilwat here. She was the last laureate of the Kimbodouin Africa Prize. She's trying to bring communities together in Somalia in order to foster peace. I've seen Gerald, who developed an app in Uganda to make legal advice using technology and artificial intelligence accessible for the most vulnerable in his country. All that belongs to the beautiful universe of philanthropy. And there's no opposition there. All these things go together. And there's not one that is more valuable than the other. For that small village in Belgium, that project is very important. Everybody looks forward to it. That impact cannot be dismissed. We're also building, and some of our partners are here, Brieuc from Give to Asia. We're trying to build that global philanthropic network so that giving across the borders becomes more easy, diminishing overhead, diminishing transaction costs, and by doing so, trying to funnel more private means to public causes. Let's do this together. Let us not be rivals, but allies in making philanthropy easier all over the world. So thank you for welcoming me over the past year into this new world, universe, I should say, of philanthropy. I hope you take away from today as much as I do, or I did. a sense of possibility, a sense of hope, a sense of progress that reminds me of my childhood years. And the fired up determination to steer a way forward as philanthropists, to do good in a universe where we welcome, as Mr. Spock would say, and this is the last time I quote Star Trek, an infinite diversity in infinite combinations. Philanthropy is a state of mind, and truly so is Be Philanthropy. This is the start of a journey. This is not just a one-off event. We will continue this discussion, this conversation in West Flanders, in Liège, but also in Paris, in Athens. And if you too want to organize an event inspired by what we did today, please get in touch with us and we will happily help you. The last thing I have to do is to thank all my colleagues, and I would like you to give them an applause, just wait, with a particular attention to Ludwig, who is truly the whole master of this event. More than 70 colleagues at the foundation worked for months to make this happen, and I'm incredibly proud to be their CEO when I see what they're capable of. So please put your hands together for my colleagues. And of course, you know, the day is not over yet. We will be able to relax a little bit more in just a second. I wish you an enjoyable rest of the day here in Brussels. I would like to thank you for coming to the event. I mean, some people have traveled as far east as Singapore. Lawrence Lean, thank you for coming. And as far west as San Francisco to be here with us and share their experiences. So thank you very much. And I hope we will continue to connect, exchange, and engage. I thank you for your attention and wish you a beautiful evening. Thank you.